When I was 21 years old, I went to a wedding in Scotland, and I got to wear my father's kilt. 4 years earlier, my father had passed away, and that was very emotional for me. It was a great honor to wear his kilt. I was born in Canada. All my family's from Scotland. My mother, my father, my aunties, my uncles. But my father, he was particularly proud of being Scottish. His kilt was his most prized possession. He actually got to meet Queen Elizabeth II, and he chose to wear his kilt to meet her. That was how important his kilt was to him. So when I got the honor to wear his kilt, I really wanted to make sure that I did it justice and I wore it properly. So I had to learn a few things. First of all, the length of the kilt is very important. It's got to go down to your knee. You also wear long woolen socks that come up to just below the knee, and you put garters in them to hold them in place. The shoes are a little bit funny. They're open at the front, and they got really long laces. And you're supposed to tie the laces, loop them 3 times around your leg before you tie them. They have a little thing called a ski and do, which is stick in the top of your sock. It's so everyone can see your knife. They don't have concealed carry in Scotland. They don't have any pockets in a kilt. In a kilt, they wear a big leather pouch that sits in front of you. It hangs around your waist. It's called a sporran. My father's sporran was pretty exotic. It was a muskrat. It was a muskrat's head with muskrat's fur. It was pretty cool. The next thing I had to learn was, what does a Scotsman wear under his kilt? So it turns out that's one of life's great mysteries. It's right up there with Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster. I asked one of my Scottish friends, what do I do? And he told me that in the 1600s, the Scottish soldiers wore kilts with nothing underneath. They would come close to an enemy, and when they got within distance, they would drop their kilt and run naked at the enemy. And it would frighten the bejesus out of the enemy. And it gave the Scotsman a huge advantage. So I had to go with no underwear, apparently. I asked another friend of mine, and he told me that when you go to a wedding, a Scottish wedding, everyone's going to ask you, are you a true Scotsman? And that literally means, are you naked under your kilt? He said if they ask you that, there's only one correct answer, and that is, I'm a true Scotsman. He said if people aren't sure about your answer, if you aren't very convincing, later in the evening when they had a few drinks, people will start reaching up to find out if you told the truth or not. And that scared the bejesus out of me. I wasn't comfortable at all not wearing underwear. I kept thinking about walking around, dancing, and everything down there jiggling around. I also was really afraid of a cold breeze going up and tickling what the Scottish call my ball bag. I was also a little bit worried about skid marks on my father's kilt. That's another story. And I was really, really worried about not sitting down properly so people saw a little bit more than they should. So I decided not to follow the tradition, but to cover my ass, both figuratively and literally. I put on boxer shorts, but I got a second pair, and I folded them up, and I put them inside my sporran. And my plan was, if anybody asked me, are you a true Scotsman, I would just pull out my clean pair, say, what do you think? So believe it or not, when I went to the wedding, that worked fantastically well. I took out my underpants repeatedly, and everyone seemed real happy. So I was real happy with myself. I got taken to my seat, and I got sat in this middle of a long row, and there was another row right pushed in next to us. I had to squeeze past a bunch of people to get to my seat, and there was all these women with beautiful robes and dresses. All the men had different color kilts. It was really, really cool. And I sat down, and after a while, the ceremony got started, and the best man got up, and he said, look, there's been a change of status of the bride. She got married today. So I'm going to have to ask any men in the audience who have a key to her apartment, can you please return it right now? So on cue, 10 different Scotsmen stood up, all with kilts on, and they made a big line, and they got up in front of the bride and put their key down. Some of them pretended to cry. Some of them resisted. 2 of them actually did a Braveheart salute, which I'll do for you now. They did that to the crowd, and we all got to see very clearly that they were true Scotsmen. After that, we ate and we drank, and then we drank some more, and after a while, I had to go to the restroom. So I stood up, and I tried to shuffle through the crowd. It was pretty crammed in there. I took 2 steps, and I felt something brush down my leg. I felt something land around my ankles. I froze. I turned bright red. And someone said, "What's wrong?" And the whole place went dead quiet. And I said, "Oh, my underwear has fallen around my ankles." Many, many people heard this. Some people started howling with laughter. I stood there, so embarrassed. I felt shame. I was standing in front of a group of people with my underwear around my ankles, but even worse, I was in my father's beloved kilt, disrespecting the Scottish traditions. With my head down in shame, I shuffled to the end, and when I got to the open space, I looked down, and it was actually my napkin from my meal. But that napkin taught me a life lesson, that if I'm going to appropriate another culture, I need to accept all their traditions, good and bad, and embrace them. So from that day onward, every time I wear a kilt, as a sign of respect to my father's traditions and his country, I always let everything hang out. I go full commando. I can say I am a true Scotsman.